initiative is primarily to encourage a multidimensional dialogue on children in difficult circumstances, to share successful models and identify gaps in policies, programs, data, research and best practices, develop an action plan to follow up on outcomes of the conference and reinforce partnerships.
In a country like ours, where there's a large divide between the haves and the have-nots, we need to pay a lot of attention to children who are the citizens of tomorrow from the vulnerable sections of society.
Listen, act, impact. While you plan for every child, I think it's been very ably put that this is the reason why we all are here. While our legislative framework is robust, we have some issues in implementing. There is abundance of intent, but there is sometimes a constraint on how to do it. This government is very willing to engage with citizens. So I suggest please link with us so that together we can address the enormous task that we have.
I think we have the right constituents together. So I observed a great abundance of civil society people and very importantly of government, and thanks for having us corporates also involved, because I believe that these three institutes need to come together to do something meaningful.
We talk about JJ, we talk about POXO Act, we talk about child labor, but we are not really talking about children and child rights. When I tell people I'm heading a commission for protection of child rights, they look at me and say, बच्चों के भी rights होते हैं. What are child rights? So we need to communicate about child rights, the right of a child to a safe and happy childhood.
Conferences like this organized by Plan are absolutely imperative in bringing together the community, bringing together all stakeholders who can express their views and collectively represent this view to government, to parliament, to people who are influencers, because without this we are not going to be able to make the difference for children.
What is working and what is not working? Fine, we have the laws. Fine, we have the money from funding agencies. Fine, we have the grant plans and programs. We have the professionals to implement it. We have the monitoring mechanisms. But at the end of it, do we know what these young people want? Do we know who they are? If we do not understand the young people in their growing up years, their socio-economic, political, aspirational and other aspects that affect them in their growing up years, I think we will be failing in trying to do whatever we are trying to do.
Intersectoral coordination is very important so that we ensure it is a sustainable model. Similarly, service providers, building the capacity of the service providers, whether it's the frontline workers on children affected by AIDS or the medical doctors, to ensure that they provide quality care. And last but not the least is working in the child-centric approach, where we work with the children and the families and build capacity of the caregivers.
If you look at the whole legal framework, look at from an education perspective, look at from a protection perspective, look at from a health perspective, you will find that these children are not in the legal framework. If you look at the juvenile justice system again, we want honorary child welfare committee members who work on an honorarium. We want social workers in the JJB who work on an honorarium. So for my child, while I say the child is critical, the system I have for the child is honorary.
Substance use and difficult circumstances among children, they sort of interface with each other in three different ways. One is that substance use among children itself. The other issue which is often neglected is substance use by adults leading to difficult circumstances in children. The third issue of increasingly we are seeing that children are being used to traffic drugs. And that is another way that children face difficult circumstances, especially legal consequences of drug use within a society.
Have programs like the one that has been organized by PlanIndia, where different stakeholders, persons having different interests with regard to children who are in difficult circumstances, if they are in a position to get together, then you get broad picture of what's happening. So it's very, very important that these kind of conferences are held, where people from different disciplines get together, people with different interests get together, and try to sort out the problems of children in difficult circumstances.
While problems are several and many, solutions have to be interdisciplinary, inter-experiential. Now this whole question of intelligentsia and bureaucracy and thinking persons to come together is a problem.
It's very clear now, world over, that unless we meet our commitments to the children and their rights, we will not really, as global citizens, really be able to meet our commitments on the Sustainable Development Goals.
We definitely in the media need to focus much more on a sort of grassroots development journalism that looks at children as a very, very important section. What I think is also very important is how do we make that kind of journalism possible, and this involves both the responsibility of the journalists, of media houses and of civil society in general.
चाइल्ड ट्रैफिकिंग, चाइल्ड मैरिज, स्ट्रीट चिल्ड्रन, हम यूथ को पता होना चाहिए कि हम इन चीज़ों को कैसे कम कर सकते हैं। हमें खुद में अवेयर होना चाहिए और हमें पता होना चाहिए कि गवर्नमेंट की पॉलिसी क्या है। और मेरा मानना है कि हर बच्चे को एजुकेशन का अधिकार मिलना चाहिए ताकि वह अपना भविष्य सुधार सके।